No one was ready for what happened next. Not Rasheeda, not Kirk, and definitely not the fans who watched the entire situation explode in real time. What started as an ordinary, tightly controlled day suddenly spiraled into chaos when a mystery woman stepped forward with a claim so shocking it left everyone frozen in disbelief. She didn't whisper it, she didn't hesitate, she said it loud enough for cameras, crew, and the internet to hear, "Kirk is my father." In that instant, the air shifted. Rasheeda's smile vanished, her hands began to shake, and those closest to her knew something was terribly wrong. Fans are shocked because this wasn't just another rumor floating online. This woman came with details, dates, and a confidence that suggested she wasn't bluffing. Emotions ran high as questions nobody wanted to ask suddenly demanded answers. Where did this woman come from? Why now? And what does this mean for a marriage that has already survived more than its fair share of scandals? As the claim echoed through the room, Rasheeda tried to stay composed, but her eyes told a different story. Years of pain, betrayal, and forgiveness came rushing back all at once. Kirk, caught completely off guard, struggled to respond, his silence speaking louder than any denial ever could. Friends looked on in stunned silence, while whispers spread like wildfire behind the scenes. Within minutes, fans online were already choosing sides, dissecting every facial expression, every pause, every shaky breath. And just when you think this situation couldn't get more intense, Rasheeda finally breaks. Tears fall, voices rise, accusations fly. The family is left divided, and nothing will ever be the same again. This isn't just drama, this is a bombshell that threatens to destroy everything they've built. And the truth? It's only just beginning to unravel. The room felt heavier than usual, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Rasheeda sat on the couch trying to focus on her phone, pretending everything was normal, but her mind kept drifting. Kirk paced near the window, distracted, checking his phone more times than necessary. The cameras were rolling, lights warm against skin, and everyone thought this was just another day. Then the knock came, not loud, not aggressive, just firm enough to demand attention. When the door opened, a woman no one recognized stepped inside, calm but intense, her eyes locked straight ahead like she had practiced this moment 1,000 times. At first, no one spoke. The woman introduced herself, voice steady, hands barely shaking. She said she wasn't there for fame, wasn't there for money, and definitely wasn't there to cause chaos. But the way Rasheeda's stomach dropped told her chaos had already arrived. The woman took a breath, looked directly at Kirk, and said the words that cracked the room in half. "You're my father." Fans would later say this was the moment everything changed. Rasheeda blinked, confused, then laughed nervously, assuming this had to be some kind of joke. But Kirk didn't laugh. His face drained of color, his jaw tightening as if he was bracing for impact. Emotions ran high immediately. The woman began explaining, talking about her mother, a brief relationship years ago, timelines lining up in a way that made the silence unbearable. Rasheeda's hands started to tremble as memories flooded back, memories of past betrayals she had fought hard to forgive. "This isn't real," Rasheeda whispered, more to herself than anyone else. But the mystery woman didn't stop. She pulled out photos, old messages, even a worn envelope she claimed had been hidden for years. Every word felt like another crack spreading across Rasheeda's heart. Kirk tried to interrupt, tried to slow things down, but the damage was already done. Fans are shocked because Kirk's silence spoke louder than denial. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't storming out, he just stood there, staring at the floor. The woman said she didn't want to hurt anyone. She said she had wrestled with this decision for years, but watching from the outside, seeing Kirk's life, seeing Rasheeda's success, she couldn't stay silent anymore. She wanted answers. She wanted acknowledgement. She wanted the truth. Rasheeda stood up suddenly, her voice breaking as she asked the one question that mattered most. "Did you know about her?" The room froze. Kirk hesitated, and that hesitation was everything. Tears filled Rasheeda's eyes as anger and heartbreak collided. This wasn't just about a mystery woman. This was about trust, about humiliation, about wounds that never fully healed. Friends watching from the sidelines exchanged worried glances. They had seen Rasheeda survive scandals before, but this felt different. This felt personal in a way that cut deep. Emotions ran high as Rasheeda demanded answers, her voice rising with every unanswered question. Kirk finally spoke, insisting he had no idea, saying he needed time to process, saying this was being blown out of proportion. But the mystery woman pushed back, saying she had reached out before, saying she had been ignored. Accusations flew. The family was left divided in real time. Rasheeda accused Kirk of lying by omission. Kirk accused the woman of chasing attention. The woman accused both of them of pretending she didn't exist. As the argument intensified, Rasheeda broke down completely. She cried not just for herself but for the years she spent defending Kirk, for the embarrassment she felt knowing fans were watching, judging, dissecting every tear. "I can't keep doing this," she said, her voice cracking. "I can't keep being strong for everybody else." Fans watching later would say this was the most vulnerable they had ever seen her. The woman softened for a moment, admitting she never wanted to hurt Rasheeda, saying she understood her pain. But empathy wasn't enough to undo the damage. The truth had already detonated. Kirk stepped back, rubbing his face, overwhelmed, caught between denial and reality. The cameras captured everything: the shaking hands, the raised voices, the silence that followed every explosive statement. When the confrontation finally paused, nothing was resolved. No DNA test yet, no apologies accepted, just unanswered questions hanging in the air. Rasheeda walked away, locking herself in another room, sobbing uncontrollably. Kirk stayed behind, staring at the woman who had just turned his life upside down. And as the door closed, one thing became painfully clear. This was only the beginning, and the fallout was going to be even worse than anyone imagined. The silence after Rasheeda disappeared into the other room felt louder than the argument itself. Kirk exhaled slowly, like he had been holding his breath for years without realizing it. The mystery woman remained standing, shoulders tense, eyes glossy but determined. No one knew what to say. The crew stayed still, unsure whether to keep filming or step in, but the damage was already immortalized. Fans are shocked because moments like this don't feel scripted, they feel raw, messy, and painfully real. Kirk finally broke the silence, asking the woman why she chose today of all days. Her response was calm but heavy. She said she was tired of being invisible. Tired of watching birthdays pass without acknowledgement. Tired of seeing headlines about family loyalty while she felt erased from the story. She said she didn't expect applause, just honesty. Kirk shook his head, saying this was too much, too fast, insisting he needed proof before anything else. The word proof hit her hard. She laughed bitterly, saying she had been proving her existence her whole life. Meanwhile, behind the closed door, Rasheeda slid down the wall, her back against the cool surface, tears streaming uncontrollably. Her phone buzzed nonstop with messages from friends who had already heard whispers of what was happening. She ignored them all. Her mind replayed every argument she and Kirk had ever had, every apology she accepted, every time she chose love over pride. Emotions ran high as she questioned whether loyalty had cost her too much. Outside, Kirk's frustration boiled over. He accused the woman of ambushing him, of turning his family into a spectacle. She fired back, saying his silence had forced her hand. Voices rose again, sharp and defensive. The family was left divided even without Rasheeda present. Some believed Kirk deserved the benefit of the doubt. Others felt his reaction said everything. Fans online were already dissecting clips, freezing frames, analyzing his body language like it held the answers. Rasheeda eventually stood up, wiping her face, forcing herself to breathe. She opened the door, her eyes red but her voice steady in a way that felt dangerous. She said she needed the truth, not excuses. She demanded a DNA test, immediately, no delays, no private negotiations. The room went quiet again. Kirk hesitated, and that hesitation cut deeper than any confession could. The woman nodded, saying she had nothing to hide. The tension was unbearable. Rasheeda looked at Kirk and said quietly, "If this is true, everything changes." Those words hung in the air like a warning. Kirk tried to reassure her, saying this didn't mean he didn't love her, didn't mean their family wasn't real. But Rasheeda snapped, saying love doesn't erase lies. Fans are shocked because this wasn't anger anymore. This was clarity. Friends finally stepped in, suggesting everyone take a break, but Rasheeda refused. She said she was tired of breaks, tired of pauses that only delayed the truth. She looked directly at the woman and asked about her mother. The woman shared details that made Rasheeda's chest tighten. Dates, locations, moments Kirk had once mentioned casually, never thinking they would resurface like this. Kirk's face told its own story, every detail hitting too close to home. As the hours passed, exhaustion set in. Voices softened but the tension never left. Rasheeda admitted she felt humiliated, not because of the woman, but because of the possibility that she had been living another lie. She spoke about trust, about how hard it was to rebuild once shattered. The woman listened quietly, tears falling now, saying she never wanted to replace anyone, never wanted to be a weapon. She just wanted space in the truth. Kirk finally admitted there was a chance, a small one, that the woman could be telling the truth. That admission felt like a punch to the gut. Rasheeda turned away, shaking her head, whispering that she needed time. Fans would later say this was the moment the marriage visibly cracked. The family was left divided not by the claim itself but by the slow unraveling of honesty. The night ended without resolution. The woman left quietly, promising to follow through with testing. Kirk stayed behind, alone, staring at nothing. Rasheeda went to another room, shutting the door between them, a symbolic distance that felt miles wide. Outside, the world was already reacting, choosing sides, forming theories, waiting for the next bombshell. And deep down, everyone knew this story was far from over, because the truth, once invited in, never leaves quietly. The next morning arrived too quickly. Sleep had done nothing to heal the tension. Rasheeda woke up with a headache and a heaviness in her chest, like grief without a name. Kirk barely slept, replaying the confrontation over and over, wondering which mistake mattered most. Fans are shocked because by sunrise, the internet was already flooded with opinions, memes, and heated debates, turning private pain into public spectacle. Rasheeda finally confronted Kirk alone, no cameras, no witnesses, just raw honesty. She asked him if there was anything else she didn't know. The silence that followed felt endless. Kirk insisted this was the last surprise, but his voice lacked conviction. Emotions ran high as Rasheeda realized trust wasn't something she could force herself to feel anymore. She told him she needed space, real space, not promises. Later that day, the woman returned briefly to drop off paperwork related to the DNA test. The encounter was awkward, heavy, but calmer. Rasheeda thanked her quietly for being honest, even through the pain. The woman apologized again, saying she never imagined the fallout would be this intense. They shared a moment of mutual understanding, both victims of a truth buried too long. As the door closed behind her, Rasheeda stood still, staring at nothing, realizing her life had shifted permanently. Kirk watched from a distance, unsure how to fix something he might have broken years ago. Fans are shocked because the drama wasn't loud anymore. It was quiet, heavy, and unresolved. And that quiet was far more dangerous than any argument, because it meant the future was uncertain, and every possibility felt terrifyingly real. Days passed but the tension never eased. Every room in the house felt unfamiliar, like it belonged to strangers pretending to be a family. Rasheeda moved through her days on autopilot, smiling when cameras were around, breaking down when they weren't. Kirk tried to act normal, making small talk, asking routine questions, but his voice sounded hollow even to himself. Fans are shocked because the once unbreakable front they showed the world had completely shattered behind closed doors. The DNA appointment was scheduled, and that alone felt like a ticking clock. Rasheeda counted the hours without meaning to. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. She avoided social media, but clips still found their way to her, people arguing about her marriage like it was a game. Emotions ran high as she realized how exposed she truly was. This wasn't just gossip, this was her life unraveling in public. Kirk tried to reassure her again one night, telling her no matter the outcome, he wanted to fight for their family. Rasheeda looked at him with tired eyes and asked a question that silenced him. Why'd I always have to be the one fighting? He had no answer. The family was left divided even within the same room, separated by unspoken resentment and years of unresolved hurt. The mystery woman stayed quiet during this time, respecting boundaries, but her presence loomed over everything. Rasheeda admitted to a friend that she didn't hate her. If anything, she pitied her. Both of them were tied to the same man, both paying for choices made long ago. That realization didn't bring peace, only a deeper sadness. Fans are shocked because Rasheeda wasn't angry in the way people expected. She was exhausted. The day of the DNA test arrived, heavy and unavoidable. The atmosphere was tense but calm, like everyone was afraid that one wrong word would cause everything to explode again. Kirk avoided eye contact. The woman remained composed, almost too composed, like she had already accepted every possible outcome. Rasheeda watched them both, feeling like an outsider in her own marriage. After the samples were taken, there was nothing left to do but wait. Waiting became its own form of torture. Rasheeda replayed moments from the past, wondering if the signs had always been there. Kirk grew quieter, retreating into himself, burdened by guilt whether the result confirmed it or not. Emotions ran high in the absence of answers, filling the silence with fear. During this waiting period, cracks began to show in other relationships too. Friends took sides, intentionally or not. Some urged Rasheeda to prepare for the worst. Others encouraged forgiveness before the truth even arrived. The family was left divided by opinions, advice, and assumptions. Rasheeda felt overwhelmed, like everyone wanted a piece of her pain. One night, unable to sleep, Rasheeda confronted Kirk again. She asked him to tell her everything, not just about the mystery woman, but about every secret. Every moment he chose silence over honesty. Kirk admitted he had always been afraid that the truth would destroy everything. Rasheeda replied softly that lies had already done that. Fans are shocked because this wasn't a screaming match. It was quiet devastation. Days later, the call finally came. The results were ready. Rasheeda felt numb, like she was watching herself from outside her body. Kirk's hands shook as he held the phone. The woman stood nearby, breathing shallow, eyes fixed on the floor. When the words were finally spoken, the room seemed to tilt. Kirk was confirmed as her father. Rasheeda didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat down slowly, like her body could no longer support her. The truth settled in with crushing weight. Emotions ran high but stayed locked inside, too heavy to release all at once. Kirk tried to speak, but Rasheeda held up her hand, asking for silence. The family was left divided in a way that felt permanent now. The woman broke down first, crying not out of victory, but relief. Years of uncertainty finally had an answer. She apologized again, saying she never wanted this to come at such a cost. Rasheeda nodded, unable to find words. She wasn't angry at the woman. She was angry at the reality she now had to face. Kirk confessed that knowing made everything worse. The guilt consumed him. He admitted he understood if Rasheeda couldn't forgive him this time. Those words hit harder than any argument. Rasheeda realized this wasn't about another scandal. This was about a life built on compromises she was no longer sure she wanted to make. In the days that followed, the public reaction intensified. Fans are shocked as debates exploded everywhere. Some praised Rasheeda's strength, others questioned her loyalty, some blamed Kirk entirely, others criticized the woman for coming forward. Rasheeda stopped listening. She had reached a point where survival mattered more than opinions. Rasheeda asked Kirk to move out temporarily. Not as punishment but as space to breathe. Kirk agreed, knowing resistance would only cause more harm. Watching him pack felt surreal. Every item he took felt like a memory being removed. Emotions ran high as Rasheeda realized how quiet the house became once he left. Alone, Rasheeda finally allowed herself to grieve. Not just the betrayal, but the version of her marriage she believed in. She cried for the woman who trusted too easily, for the future she imagined, for the strength she was tired of proving she had. The family was left divided, but for the first time, Rasheeda felt a strange sense of clarity. The woman reached out one last time, thanking Rasheeda for her grace. Rasheeda responded with honesty, saying forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It meant releasing herself from carrying anger that wasn't hers to hold. Fans are shocked because Rasheeda's response wasn't dramatic. It was mature, painful, and real. As weeks passed, the story didn't fade. It evolved. Kirk tried to step into his new role, learning how to be present for a child he never knew. The woman navigated a new identity, caught between joy and guilt. Rasheeda focused on herself, rebuilding confidence that had been chipped away for years. Emotions ran high, but beneath them was growth. Nothing was fully resolved. Questions lingered about the future of the marriage, about forgiveness, about coexisting with a truth that changed everything. The family was left divided, but also transformed. And as fans continued to watch, speculate, and react, one thing was undeniable. This wasn't just another headline. This was a turning point that would define all of their lives moving forward. Time moved forward, but nothing felt settled. Even with Kirk gone from the house, his presence lingered in every corner. Rasheeda would catch herself listening for his footsteps, then remember why the silence existed in the first place. The house became a reflection of her emotions, calm on the surface but heavy underneath. Fans are shocked because instead of explosive drama, what followed was something quieter and more unsettling, acceptance mixed with unresolved pain. Kirk tried to respect the distance, but distance didn't erase responsibility. He began reaching out to the woman more consistently, awkward conversations filled with pauses and missed words. Neither of them knew how to define their relationship yet. She wasn't looking for a replacement for the years she lost, but she needed acknowledgement, presence, effort. Kirk struggled with guilt, realizing every step forward with her felt like another step away from Rasheeda. Emotions ran high as he tried to balance accountability with regret. Rasheeda focused on work, throwing herself into projects as a distraction. On camera, she was composed, confident, unshaken. Off camera, she battled waves of doubt. She questioned whether strength had become a cage she built for herself. Friends noticed the change. She laughed less, paused more, thought before responding. The family was left divided not just by relationships but by different stages of healing. Public opinion remained relentless. Some fans praised Rasheeda for choosing herself. Others insisted she was walking away too soon. Kirk faced backlash too, accused of repeating patterns, of failing to protect the woman who stood by him. The mystery woman, now no longer a mystery, became a symbol of long-buried truths. Fans are shocked because no one escaped judgment, and no apology felt big enough. One evening, Rasheeda agreed to meet Kirk in a neutral space. Not for reconciliation, but for closure. The tension between them was different now, calmer but heavier. Kirk admitted he didn't expect forgiveness. He said he just wanted her to know he understood what he cost her. Rasheeda listened quietly, then told him that understanding didn't undo damage. Emotions ran high, but there was no yelling, no accusations left to throw. She told him she had spent years proving loyalty, and now she wanted to prove something else to herself, that she could choose peace without guilt. Kirk nodded, eyes glossy, realizing this might be the most honest moment they'd shared in years. The family was left divided, but this conversation marked a shift from chaos to clarity. Meanwhile, the woman struggled with her own reality. Stepping into Kirk's life meant stepping into scrutiny she never asked for. People questioned her motives, her timing, her character. She leaned on therapy, trying to unpack the weight of finally being seen. Emotions ran high as she admitted she felt both validated and ashamed, like truth came with a price she never anticipated. Rasheeda reached out to her unexpectedly, not to discuss Kirk, but to set boundaries. She said they were connected by circumstance, not competition. She asked for respect, distance, and honesty. The woman agreed, grateful for the grace Rasheeda continued to show despite everything. Fans are shocked because instead of rivalry, there was mutual restraint, a quiet agreement to not let one man define their worth. Weeks turned into months. Kirk settled into a routine, attempting to be present without forcing closeness. Rasheeda reclaimed parts of herself she had neglected. She traveled, laughed more freely, rediscovered joy in small moments. But healing wasn't linear. Some nights, memories resurfaced, and the hurt felt fresh again. Emotions ran high in solitude, where there was no audience, no expectations. The public narrative began to shift. Instead of waiting for reconciliation, fans started asking a different question: what does healing actually look like? The family was left divided, but each person was evolving in their own way. Kirk learned humility. The woman learned identity. Rasheeda learned boundaries. A year later, a chance encounter brought all three into the same space again. There was tension, but also growth. Kirk acknowledged both women without defensiveness. Rasheeda held her head high, unbothered by comparisons. The woman spoke with confidence, no longer shrinking herself. Fans are shocked because what could have been explosive was simply human. No grand reunion happened, no dramatic forgiveness speech, just acknowledgement of a shared past and separate futures. Rasheeda realized closure didn't mean answers to every question. It meant no longer needing them. Emotions ran high, but they no longer controlled her. As the story faded from headlines, its impact remained. Lives were altered, relationships redefined, the family was left divided but not destroyed. And in the end, the biggest revelation wasn't about paternity or betrayal. It was about resilience, about choosing truth even when it hurts, and about walking forward without letting the past dictate the future. Even after the cameras stopped caring, the consequences kept unfolding. Rasheeda noticed how people treated her differently, like they were waiting for a final decision she didn't owe anyone. Every interview question circled back to Kirk, to the woman, to the DNA results, as if her own identity had been reduced to someone else's mistake. Fans are shocked because Rasheeda began shutting those questions down, calmly but firmly, refusing to relive pain for entertainment. Kirk, on the other hand, struggled with the weight of accountability. Stepping into fatherhood so late came with regret he couldn't outrun. He tried to show up consistently, learning details he should have known years ago, favorite foods, childhood memories he missed. The woman appreciated the effort but didn't romanticize it. She told him plainly that presence now didn't erase absence then. Emotions ran high as Kirk confronted the reality that some gaps can never be filled. Rasheeda's healing took an unexpected turn when she started therapy, publicly advocating for it without sharing details. Fans are shocked because instead of presenting herself as unbreakable, she openly admitted she was learning how to rest, how to stop carrying everyone else's burdens. She spoke about emotional labor, about how women are often praised for endurance instead of protected from harm. Those words resonated deeply, shifting public sympathy in a new direction. Behind the scenes, Kirk attempted one last gesture, writing Rasheeda a letter he never planned to send. It wasn't an apology meant to win her back. It was a confession of fear, immaturity, and choices driven by avoidance. He eventually shared parts of it with her during a final conversation, voice shaking, eyes wet. Rasheeda listened without interruption, then told him something that changed the tone forever. She said forgiveness didn't require proximity. She could forgive him and still choose a different life. That moment marked a quiet ending. Not dramatic, not final in a cinematic way, just honest. The family was left divided, but lines were finally drawn with clarity instead of chaos. Kirk accepted that reconciliation wasn't guaranteed. Rasheeda accepted that closure didn't need agreement. The woman found her footing slowly. She stopped being introduced by the scandal and started being known for herself. She pursued goals she had put on hold, no longer defined by secrecy. Fans are shocked because her story didn't turn into revenge or entitlement. It turned into self-discovery. She admitted that knowing the truth didn't magically heal her, but it gave her language for wounds she never understood before. Social media eventually moved on, as it always does, chasing the next controversy. But for those involved, the impact lingered. Rasheeda noticed she laughed differently now, more freely, less guarded. She stopped apologizing for needing space. Emotions ran high less often, replaced by a steady sense of self-respect she hadn't felt in years. Kirk continued working on himself, quietly, away from headlines. He admitted to friends that losing Rasheeda's trust was the hardest lesson he'd ever faced. Not because of public embarrassment, but because it forced him to confront patterns he could no longer deny. The family was left divided, but accountability had finally entered the picture. One final public appearance brought everything full circle. Asked about the past, Rasheeda smiled softly and said she wouldn't change how things unfolded because the truth, painful as it was, freed her. Fans are shocked because instead of bitterness, she spoke with peace. She didn't rewrite history. She reframed it. The story that once exploded with accusations and tears settled into something quieter but deeper. No villains. No heroes. Just people living with consequences. Emotions ran high once, but wisdom followed. And while the family was left divided, each person walked forward more honest than before, carrying scars not as shame, but as proof they survived the truth. Even as time stretched on, the emotional aftershocks refused to disappear. Rasheeda learned that healing wasn't about forgetting, it was about remembering without breaking. Some mornings she woke up light, hopeful, grounded. Other mornings the weight returned without warning, settling in her chest like unfinished business. Fans are shocked because the strongest moments weren't televised. They happened in silence, in private decisions no one applauded. Kirk continued navigating a life reshaped by consequences. Every attempt to rebuild trust felt like walking uphill against gravity. He attended counseling, not for optics, but because avoidance was no longer an option. He admitted aloud that fear had guided too many of his choices. Fear of conflict, fear of exposure, fear of losing control. Emotions ran high as he realized that by avoiding truth, he had guaranteed pain. Rasheeda noticed the shift in him, but change didn't equal safety. She had learned the hard way that effort didn't always lead to peace. She focused instead on consistency within herself. She set boundaries that felt uncomfortable at first, boundaries she once believed made her selfish. The family was left divided, but for the first time, she didn't feel responsible for fixing that. The woman continued building a relationship with Kirk at her own pace. She refused to rush emotional closeness, insisting on honesty over obligation. Their conversations were awkward but real, filled with long pauses and cautious questions. Fans are shocked because there was no fairy tale reunion. Just two adults learning how to exist in the aftermath of truth. Rasheeda's public image evolved in unexpected ways. People stopped asking when she would forgive and started asking how she found the courage to walk away. She never claimed bravery. She called it necessity. Emotions ran high when she admitted that staying had once felt safer than leaving, until it didn't. One night, alone in her home, Rasheeda reflected on the woman she used to be. The woman who believed endurance was love. The woman who thought loyalty meant silence. She mourned her gently, not with regret, but gratitude. That version of her had survived so this one could exist. Fans are shocked because growth didn't come with bitterness. It came with grace. Kirk reached a turning point when he accepted that redemption didn't mean regaining what he lost. It meant becoming better even if no one was watching. He stopped explaining himself publicly. He stopped defending his intentions. He let actions speak, even when they weren't noticed. The family was left divided, but accountability finally felt real. As the years passed, the scandal faded into memory, but its lessons remained sharp. Rasheeda formed deeper friendships, choosing people who didn't require her to perform strength. She learned how to rest without guilt. Emotions ran high less frequently, replaced by calm confidence. The woman eventually shared her story on her own terms, not as a reveal, but as reflection. She spoke about identity, about growing up with unanswered questions, about the courage it took to seek truth knowing it might cost everything. Fans are shocked because her narrative wasn't about blame. It was about reclaiming agency. Rasheeda listened to that interview quietly, feeling something unexpected. Not anger, not sadness, understanding. She realized their stories were intertwined but no longer entangled. That distinction brought peace she didn't know she needed. The family was left divided, but separation no longer felt like failure. In a final symbolic moment, Rasheeda packed away items from her past marriage, not in anger, but with intention. She kept what mattered, released what didn't. Emotions ran high as she closed the box, knowing she wasn't erasing history, just making room for what came next. Kirk watched from a distance as Rasheeda thrived, accepting that loving someone sometimes meant letting them go fully. The woman moved forward too, no longer defined by a secret but by choice. Fans are shocked because the ending wasn't explosive. It was honest. And in the end, the story that began with a shocking claim and public breakdown became something else entirely. A lesson in truth, a reminder that strength isn't loud, and proof that even when the family is left divided, healing can still find its way through the cracks. Even long after the shock settled, the emotional consequences kept resurfacing in unexpected ways. Rasheeda discovered that healing wasn't a straight path forward, it was a spiral. Just when she thought she had made peace, something small would trigger a memory. A song, a phrase, a familiar laugh. Fans are shocked because she didn't collapse under those moments. She paused, acknowledged them, and kept going. Kirk struggled with seeing Rasheeda flourish without him. Not out of jealousy, but regret. He realized too late that her loyalty had been a gift, not a guarantee. Watching her reclaim herself forced him to confront how much he had taken for granted. Emotions ran high during quiet nights when accountability felt heavier than public backlash ever did. The woman continued redefining her identity beyond the revelation. She no longer introduced herself through connection or controversy. She built routines, friendships, and confidence rooted in choice. The truth gave her answers, but boundaries gave her peace. Fans are shocked because she didn't chase validation. She built stability. Rasheeda's perspective on love shifted dramatically. She spoke privately with friends about how love without honesty becomes survival, not partnership. She admitted that for years she had confused endurance with devotion. The family was left divided, but that division clarified what she would never accept again. Unexpectedly, Rasheeda found herself mentoring other women navigating betrayal. Not as an expert, but as someone honest about uncertainty. She didn't offer promises of strength. She offered permission to choose yourself without explanation. Emotions ran high during those conversations because she recognized parts of her past in their stories. Kirk continued therapy, slowly unpacking patterns rooted in avoidance. He learned that silence can be a form of control, and control can destroy intimacy. Those realizations didn't absolve him, but they changed him. The family was left divided, but growth didn't require reunion. One quiet afternoon, Rasheeda revisited the place where everything had unraveled. Not to relive it, but to release it. Standing there, she felt grief, relief, and pride all at once. Fans are shocked because she didn't rewrite the narrative. She honored it and moved forward. The woman reached a milestone of her own, celebrating an achievement that had nothing to do with Kirk. She shared it quietly, intentionally. Kirk showed up, supportive but restrained, understanding that presence didn't mean ownership. Emotions ran high, but respect guided the moment. Rasheeda watched from afar, not with bitterness but detachment. She recognized that closure had arrived in pieces, not all at once. She no longer needed apologies to feel whole. The family was left divided, but separation no longer equaled pain. Over time, public curiosity faded, replaced by new headlines and fresh scandals. But this story lingered because it reflected something familiar. Choices, consequences, resilience. Fans are shocked because the loudest transformation happened after the noise stopped. Rasheeda embraced a future defined by clarity. She trusted herself again, not because the world changed, but because she did. Kirk accepted a quieter role, one shaped by humility rather than image. The woman stepped fully into her truth, unburdened by secrecy. There was no dramatic reunion, no explosive confrontation to end it all. Just acceptance. And in that acceptance, each of them found a different version of freedom. Emotions ran high once, but wisdom followed. The family was left divided, yes. But they were also honest, aware, and evolving. And sometimes, that's the most real ending of all. And now that you've heard how this shocking story unfolded, the question is, what do you think really comes next? Was Rasheeda right to finally choose herself, or do you believe Kirk deserved another chance after the truth came out? Fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and the family was left divided, but the conversation is far from over. This situation raised hard questions about loyalty, forgiveness, and how much one person is expected to endure in the name of love. If you were in Rasheeda's position, would you have stayed and tried to rebuild once again, or would you have walked away the moment the truth was confirmed? And what about the woman who came forward? Did she do the right thing by revealing the secret, or should the past have stayed buried? Every angle tells a different story, and your perspective matters. Now it's your turn to speak. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let everyone know where you stand. Do you see this as betrayal, growth, or an unavoidable reckoning? Make sure you like this video if you felt the emotion, the tension, and the realness of this story. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next jaw-dropping breakdown, because stories like this don't end quietly, and there's always another twist waiting to unfold. Turn on your notifications so you're the first to know when the next explosive story drops. And remember, what looks like drama on the surface often hides deeper truths underneath. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.